Jai Hind. We welcome all our esteemed guests for yet another edition of Strive Dialogues. और आज जो टॉपिक हम लोग लेने वाले हैं वो है भारत और चीन के संबंधों के विषय में. As you know that since 1962 our relationship was frozen. However, in 2020 चाइना ने प्रयास किया कि जो ग्राउंड सिचुएशन है उसको बदलने की, एंड गलवान हुआ 5 मई को, और जिसमें कि उनको मुंह की खानी पड़ी. उसके बाद से आज तक जो LAC है थी करीब ऑलमोस्ट 4000 किलोमीटर की, 3885 किलोमीटर की, वो टोटली अलाइव है. इस बीच में काफ़ी कुछ हुई बातें, तो इसके बारे में हमें समझने की आवश्यकता है कि जो लेटेस्ट चाइना इसमें कर रहा है वो ये क्या कर रहा है कि LAC दैट लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल के साथ साथ लद्दाख से लेके अरुणाचल तक वो कुछ नए गांव बनाने की, बॉर्डर के पीछे बनाने की कोशिश कर रहा है, जिनको वो ज़ियाओकांग विलेज कह रहा है. तो इन सब के बारे में हम लोग जरा बात करेंगे और ये भी जानेंगे कि जो तिब्बत का एरिया है इसका महत्व भारत और चीन के संबंधों में क्या है. तीसरा जो एरिया हम लोग जानना चाहेंगे वो क्या भारतवर्ष is ready to take on this kind of a challenge. To talk on all these issues, we have a very eminent scholar with us, Brigadier Rakesh Bhatia, who is been a very keen China watcher. Recently, he has written a very thought-provoking and insightful paper in a book called The Elephant Awakes, Strategic Reflections 2023, जो कि स्ट्राइव ने पब्लिश की है. तो वेलकम ब्रिगेडियर भाटिया for today's discussion, and I hope your domain expertise will come very handy in clarifying the doubts of many of us.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind words, and I'm humbled, sir, and I'll try and put things in perspective and try my best to give out the details what I think are as of now relevant today, sir.
First thing first, Brigadier Bhatia, British treated Tibet as a buffer state, and when they treated it as a buffer state, they didn't allow China to have any kind of an incursion on this, although traditionally China had a suzerainty over Tibet. But जैसे ही ब्रिटिश भारतवर्ष से गए, within 10 years, by 1959, they had occupied Tibet. Now, we all know that Tibet has got its own geostrategic importance. Now, to put things in perspective, what are those areas of geostrategic importance which make Tibet such a lucrative target for China?
Sir, first of all, Tibet, as we, sir, we will have the slides slightly later, sir. So first of all, Tibet, as we know today, it's not restricted to Tibet autonomous regions. The whole of Tibet is approximately 2.5 million square kilometers. And it was during the Long March when Mao realized the strategic importance of this area. He realized that if Tibet is the only area which can provide extreme strategic depth to its hinterland, the core area of China. Now, Tibet was part of Qing dynasty. The Qing dynasty had finished in 1912, and after that, in fact, till 1951, 59 was the final annexion. But till 1951, it remained independent, though China kept saying that we have suzerainty, but practically Tibet was independent. But during World War II also, and Mao's civil war with Chiang Kai-shek's Kuomintang, that is Nationalist Party, The Britishers were supporting Chiang Kai-shek, and all the logistic support was coming via Tibet through the famous operations called Over the Hump operation, where the USA was providing the air support and the logistic support to Chiang Kai-shek, who actually was fighting the battle. Now, this also was a battle between capitalist, which was being represented by Chiang Kai-shek, and communism, which is being represented by Mao. So Mao realized that now that they had won the civil war in 1949, the People's Republic of China came into the being. And that time, after World War, that conflict between communism and capitalist was going on. So China, a vast country, had literally fallen into the Soviet-led communist domains. So somehow Mao was very sure that China will not, USA will not let us, rest in peace. So annexing Tibet, 2.5 million square kilometers, and providing depth was a good idea. So that is the reason that immediately in 1st October 49, China became a republic, and in 51, it decided to annex Tibet. And Tibet actually is the Tibet autonomous region that we know is just about 1.2 million square kilometers. The entire Tibet also includes two more provinces, that is Kham and there's one more, Sichuan. So it is basically, it is much more than what it is. Secondly, sir, Tibet, there are so many rivers which emanate from Tibet. There are almost about 1.3 billion people who actually survive on the water which comes from Tibet. पानी is one essential thing जिसको कि आप as a tool इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं. आप उसको strategic commodity की तरह यूज कर सकते हैं, आप इकोनॉमिक वॉरफेयर में यूज कर सकते हैं, आप डिप्लोमेसी में यूज कर सकते हैं. तो इसलिए भी it was realized that annexing Tibet was extremely important. Of late, what has happened is, sir, now we look at the vision, how exactly Tibet needs to be developed, and what was done was good for China. India has joined powerful alliances like Quads. Now, Quad, other than India, there is no other country which can actually threaten a two-front war on China. So, India is an important player in that, and if at all, it is decided that we need to, expose China on the second front, then Tibet plays an extremely important strategic role in that. And that is how these developments that are taking place are basically to make sure that Tibet becomes a sort of security barrier for entire China. So this, in brief, is the importance which the Tibet has for China.
No wonder that even the CPEC, which comes from Xinjiang through Aksai Chin, to provide its shoulder support. That's how Depsang, which is part of Tibet and Ladakh, they have tried to intrude in. And likewise, in central sector and also further in east, they have been trying. And Mao's the famous dictum that China's health is important only because if the five fingers are there,
correct.
From Ladakh, Nepal, Bhutan, Sikkim, and Arunachal. So, yes, I agree with you that this is very important. Now, what is there? Despite all this, Tibet is still very sparsely populated. Though it has got certain strategic minerals, it has got water, which you said very recently, and their importance is because of the climate change. The water is becoming important. But despite all this, very sparsely populated. And recent reports suggest that they are trying to establish moderately prosperous villages all along this LAC, starting from Nagari in Ladakh to opposite Kameng in Arunachal. I mean, my report suggests that about, say, 628 they have planned to have established these villages. Now, earlier they were opposite Ladakh only, but now I think the recent thrust is eastern and central sector. Now, we know the relevance of in Eastern, when you talk of against coming, so obviously they want to come into Arunachal and threaten Tawang. Similarly, in Chumbi Valley, if they are there, they will threaten Siliguri corridor. And if it is in Churop area, then they will threaten Barahuti and obviously Badrinath. So with all this thing, is it what is the logic of establishing these villages? Is it part of his strategy to win a war without fighting, which is Sun Tzu's old theory? And how does it help to improve her to defensive as well as offensive posture opposite India?
Sir, what they have done in Tibet by establishing this moderately well-off villages is part of a strategy which they have evolved somewhere around 2003. This is called strategy of three warfares. So three warfare, if we want to describe, it is psychological, manovaigyanic, opinion, vicharik, and the third one is that just one. So this three warfare, they had actually very successfully employed it in East and South China Seas, where they are fighting, or there are claims in the ocean.
Improving defensive posture is one of them. Third is probably
improving defensive posture is one of them, sir. So what they have tasted success there, sir. Now, I'll just say it again, sir. I just missed it. So it was the third one was the legal warfare, sir. So psychological, opinion, and legal warfare. So these are the three aspects of three warfares.
Yeah.
Now, what has happened is that, sir, Chinese realized that problem always starts from periphery. Any country whose periphery is not strong, its core can never remain strong. Now, we know that in Tibet, the Tibetan population has very, very less cultural, ethnic, language, or religious affinity with the mainland China. So there was a lot of protests against occupation of Tibet by the Chinese army. So they realized that till such time there is peace in Tibet, they cannot govern the area so well. And any country, inimical country, which wants to create some problem in China, can very easily make use of this population and launch operations inside Tibet. So that is how, can I have slides, sir? That is why Xi Jinping, in fact, he said that to govern the borders, first stabilize Tibet, ensure social harmony and stability in Tibet, and strengthen the development of border region. They realized that till such time the borders are not strong, the nation can never be strong. So that is why they have gone in. Now, problem which was coming up was that the traditional life of a Tibetan is that of a nomadic, who's moving from one place to another, and it was very difficult to keep an eye on his activities. So somewhere around 2010 or so, the first major reason why they created some sort of communes at that time, I won't call it them villages, the communes which were created were basically to keep an eye on the movement of the Tibetans. All the basic facilities were provided to them, including a job, a small little factory was put for their jobs, a micro hydropower project was put, schools were put where children were taught ideological Chinese ideology. So all these things, and nobody could move out of that area without the Communist Party noticing where exactly this person is going. All his activities were under watch. Then slowly they realized that now all these nomadics need to be settled down in a particular place. Then only their activities can be monitored better. Now, in the meantime, there were a lot of infrastructure also which was coming up in Tibet. Now, these villagers, a lot of these villagers have been forcefully relocated into these newly constructed houses in all along the LAC. Now, those locations have been so selected so as to keep an eye on the border area or the LAC, and the people who are living in this area, the villagers, uh, as per a new borderland law which has come into the force, these people have to act as eyes and ears of the Communist Party. So, infrastructure that has come up, it has definitely military spin-off. Now there is, people have landed up there. There is a requirement to generate some economic activity for these people. So what they've done is they've selected these villages and publicized it in rest of the China to come as a tourist in this particular area. Now what is happening? The money that has been spent in creating the road, rail, and the airport is generating some sort of revenue. There are people who are in the mainland China, they are interacting more with the locals who are there in Tibet. Plus, a demographic change can also take place subsequently when the Han Chinese feel that there are enough economic opportunities that exist in Tibet. There will be Han Chinese like they've done it in Xinjiang. There will be Han Chinese who will move in, and for sure, Chinese are they know that only those people who are totally loyal to the CCP will be permitted to come onto these areas. Now, once having established these villages very close to the LAC, firstly, I mentioned that eyes and ears are there. Second advantage these villages will have is that these can act as hides for keeping some amount of heavy equipment, oblique forces, and when they are required to be deployed, they can be deployed in no time. So let's not forget, Tibet is a totally barren area. Satellite images give us excellent view of whatever movement is taking place wherever. It's very difficult for Tibetan or PLA to hide their equipment when it is in the open or when it is moving from place A to B. Once they've done this movement, and especially this movement will be carried out at the time when the satellite cover is very limited at that time. And once they are hidden in this habitation, it will be very difficult for us to pick it up. And subsequently, even when we are aware that there are military targets which are available, from our side to strike a civil area where there is a possibility that there is a military target, in considering the international opinion, it may not be possible for us, or we may be reluctant in times to target the areas which are known to be civilian areas. So in case of defenses, of course, the entire LAC, the surveillance is happening. These people are moving around and giving the information. And in case of offensive, these villages can be used to house the military forces and equipment. So this, in brief, I think is the strategy which they have adopted.
So as I can see that these villages are manned by either PLA personnel or retired PLA personnel or quasi PLA personnel or Han Chinese to keep an eye on Tibetans. So to start with, that was the aim, just to so that their control remains stable. Because one of the objectives, as you mentioned about Xi Jinping's, to stabilize Tibet. Is Tibet stabilized even today?
Sir, there are a lot of incidents where there are reports of Tibetans still trying to get out of Tibet and coming over to Dalai Lamas or to CTA.
So that means that their loyalty still remains, that culturally they have not been assimilated in Chinese, say, mainstream. They are still distinct group who have their loyalty towards Dalai Lama.
Sir,
And,
that is the reason. Sorry, that's the reason I mentioned, sir. In the Xiaokong villages, there is a tremendous amount of ideological indoctrination that is going on. Now, today we are expecting it that yes, the loyalties are limited, but sir, let's consider 2-3 generations down the lines.
yes. No, I can see that. But right now, these villages essentially have provided a kind of a defensive posture to PLA, so that any kind of a attempted incursion by Indian armed forces is thwarted at the hustling itself. That is one of the aim. and it
Absolutely.
acts as eyes and ears, both inwards for against Tibetans as well as against Chinese. I mean Indians who are actually on the lower altitude and they had to climb up to the Tibetan plateau, so they will be quite vulnerable to any kind of a observation.
I
So
want to
now,
add another thing, sir. Sorry. No, sir. Any army, sir, which has to go in for an operation, if in its own area, if the loyalty of the local population is not with the army, that the army will never ever be comfortable. So in this case, the locals who had the potential to create some sort of difficulties for the army to operate in that area has been foreclosed. Now these people will remain confined to a village and cannot actually, and in any case, any time when they create or CCP, the Communist Party, has a feeling that they are not loyal to your ideology, China,
they
you
can
know,
be
sir,
sent to northern China or something, some concentration camp or something.
there
Now,
is yet another. Sorry, sir. There's yet another aspect, sir. Now,
uh,
there are political officers who are posted in this village,
commissars,
and
commissars.
commissars. So, as I had mentioned, borderland area laws which have come up in the military literature, they are also talking about extending this particular political education to across the border, that is into our area. So on
Yes.
one side, they're making sure that their own backyard or their own area of operation is absolutely quiet without any dissent. They are actually putting the seed of dissent into their probable offensive area, that is in our area, once they come across.
So that means that's a cause of concern for us, that we
That's a
have
cause
to
of
keep
concern
our
for
own
us.
area, our own people quite well
So,
aware of such designs,
so
and so that
we have to very extensively carry out counterintelligence measures and keep an eye on our own peoples.
yes,
That lest
and
they are going to impress them with the type of life they are giving to those people, with paved low roads and internet connection and 24/7 electricity connection and subsidy, seed money, correction, good business opportunities. So they are going to say that this is how our Tibetans are living, and you just
yes.
see the growth.
Now, very interesting thing which has come to my mind just now. You know, China has got a claim about LAC, about McMahon line, that he considers the entire Arunachal as a South Tibet. Then the entire Ladakh, it considers that it is part of it, and he is doing salami slicing even in. Against Nepal, he's trying the same stunt. He's trying the same thing in
Bhutan.
Bhutan also, in Dolam area and all those things. So I'm just wondering, by establishing these villages about say 6 to 7 kilometers behind the LAC, is it not kind of a legalizing LAC? And if that be the case, what happens to his claim across the say south side of the LAC?
Sir, I think
Is he de facto leaving those claims?
actually, sir, there is very less literature which is available on this thought. I think now we should actually
I'm just while talking to you, it is coming to my mind, and this is a very interesting thing.
absolutely,
I
sir.
think it needs to be researched. Huh.
This is in a way validating our own stance that okay, LSE is what McMahon line is, and
Yes.
you have already established. Another thing people are fearing, sir, that according to the understanding between the two countries, the settled population will not be disturbed. Now, if the settled population is across our claim lines, then that from that legal point of view, we actually should not be really concerned too much. I've read few articles by experts, showing apprehensions that they are settling population. So, in the time of negotiation, they will say that settled population cannot be disturbed. So settled population, there very very few cases where there are claims that they have made it on own side, but there are not many which are on the own side. In any case, the LAC, these villages are coming in the front line as well as in the second line is about 8, 10, 20 kilometers away from LACs, and the location is basically very well thought of on communication hubs. It's not random.
Okay. So this flags two very important issues. One is that he is trying to attempt to say kind of subvert population on our side of LAC oblique McMahon line. That is one part of it. Second is that there is a need to improve the infrastructure build-up on our side. These are the two things just to thwart his designs. Now, recently in the in 22 budget, says about 4,800 crores were earmarked for a program called Village, that Vibrant
Vibrant.
Village program, and by end of this program, about say 3,000 villages, they are in about say 19 districts all along the LAC. They want to cover by this program, and in that the first tranche of 4,800 has been given. Now, in the month of April, Home Minister Mr. Amit Shah, he established first village in Kubitu in Arunachal. In 2008 onwards, we have this border development area program, but now it has got a say kind of a flip up and a boost by having better infrastructure and all those things. Now, is this vibrant village program adequate to challenge? Because to my mind, it is more of a reactive program, but however, it has got its own merits, and we can see whether such programs have ever been successful in a democratic country. China is a different case altogether. In our case, in Andamans, in Campbell Bay, it didn't work. Kachali didn't work. But will it work? Your thoughts on that?
Sir, what you're talking about is that there was a report, and in fact, late CDS had also alluded to it. Especially in Uttarakhand area, there were about 185 depopulated villages which were ghost villages. Now, there was an apprehension that Chinese may come and occupy this space. And thereafter, like we had spoken, we can then subsequently claim it as his claim area. To counter it, vibrant villages are there. No, like China, it's a authoritative rule. They can relocate anybody by order. But in India, for a person to get relocated, he needs incentives. He needs incentives in terms of some amount of subsidies, some amount of seed money to start his program. Some government has to act as a catalyst. More importantly, sir, there is an inner line permit also which exists all along the borders. In our case, the purpose of which, as we are aware, was to protect the that the people from hills are not exploited by the people from plains. So we have to think of that, removing that inner line permit also, and thereafter encouraging tourism. Third thing, sir, what I was thinking is that if ex-servicemen or these demobilized Agniveers, they can be roped in, sir. They will be a better bet who belong to that area. It will be a better bet if, and this will be a good rehabilitation also for them. And we have a trained people in a way they are managing our or watching our LAC also. So all these actions need to be taken so to make sure that we these vibrant villages, and it is absolutely important for us to establish it. And government has already, like you mentioned, the 4,800 crores have been given, and they have promised a huge sum subsequently. In addition, the border area development plan, in any case, is going on.
My own experience, Rakesh, is that these villages will become lucrative target for settlers there only if certain basic amenities are there.
Yes,
Because
sir.
if medical facilities are not there, if educational facilities are not there,
Absolutely, sir.
then why should someone go from say staying in Almora or Pithoragarh or say
Sir,
Darjeeling or something, he goes there.
in a
Very
lighter
simple.
vein, sir. In a lighter vein, we already have an example across the LACs. So the health
Yes.
service and the job and all these things are catered there. So these needs to be taken into consideration while thinking of relocating people, sir. You can't leave them in a lurch.
So I think in a very planned manner, if the connectivity is improved, in more than one ways. That is not only road connectivity, but communication connectivity, provision, the possibility of creating job opportunities, local, say, products being, say, kind of encouraged, and their supply chain management and all those things. Probably because as a part of a development, as a part of defense, in case if it is taken up, probably it will work. Otherwise, it will meet the same fate as Campbell Bay, because I remember there are only 26 families are left in Campbell Bay in Great Nicobar Island. Kachal, I think not even 10 families are left.
Correct.
They have all run away from there. So therefore, just to ensure, that is something. Now, this flags the last and a very important aspect is infrastructure development. India awoke to it a little late. China is way ahead in infrastructure development across the. So they have that QTR and all those things. They are thinking in terms of bringing the railway line even to Nepal now.
Nepal.
And the recent talks with the settling down border with the Bhutan and all, which is going on, is another kind of a cause of concern for us. So therefore, infrastructure development is necessary. A, for development, which we talk about development as defense. Second part is, how is it going to improve the ISPR capability and capability for Indian Armed Forces to respond in a real time frame, because so that they can be, they need not be deployed all along the border, but they can be in a position so that they can react quickly. Your thoughts on that?
Sir, infrastructure in any case gives you a lot of strength. Now we are talking, we had almost forgotten about Tibet till such time we realized that there's a lot of infrastructure which is suddenly coming up. Now there was a time when there were no satellites. In fact, the Akshay chain, that road had come up from Xinjiang to Lhasa, and we were not even aware of that the road has been carved out of our claimed areas. Now with satellites coming up, and now slowly our visibility of in Tibet is increasing. So they have an upper hand today only because they have better infrastructure than us. So they are able to react in a better way. While
In a
we
way, they
again,
have got one advantage, that it's a flat
yes,
area,
it's a flat.
well
I was about
settled.
to say that. Sir.
Well settled. Mhm.
No, we have a young mountain on our side, which will take time to settle down. But yes, that does not stop us from constructing now. Very simple things, sir. The
Engineering
two
should be, I mean, more innovative engineering is needed to.
absolute. No, sir. Very simple, sir. Our defense posture in Ladakh has improved after the two tunnels which have come up there, sir. And
And
that's the
there also
reason
this Sela
that
tunnel, which is coming up.
Sela tunnel has come up, sir. Sela tunnel has come up. So now you have all-weather connectivity all throughout the years. Now, what is China is also thinking of, sir? Just I know we're running out of time, but very few thoughts on this, sir. What is actually China thinking also, sir? Tibet, they cannot keep it enclosed forever. After all, the importance of Tibet from being a geostrategic to geopolitical, now they are actually looking at geoeconomics. And if Tibet has to open up and has to do some commerce or some trade, the only option available to it is to come into India and south of India. So that eventually is going to happen once Chinese are very sure that infrastructure wise and facility wise, India cannot think of uh, making any sort of misadventure into China. When China is extremely confident that India cannot do it, and that is only because of the infrastructure that they have created. And we have to match up, and the any leverage can be only when you have the capabilities. As the famous saying goes, the capabilities take time to build, and the
And
intentions are actually going to be defined based on your capabilities.
a very interesting thing which has come up today in the papers, it was there that one of the central universities located in Arunachal is in first five of the country. It has
That's it.
that ranking. So that means education is improving, but education alone is not sufficient. Education has to be supported by some kind of a job opportunity. Now there was a question, it just
So
went quickly, but I could see it, that it is that why did India recognize Tibet as part of China in 2003 without getting reciprocal Chinese recognition of Arunachal. By recognizing Tibet, does it not imply South Tibet or Arunachal is also China?
Sir, why did India recognize Tibet? Firstly, though, sir, it is not. It's we can always revert back from this particular stance. I mean, we can always say tomorrow that okay, now we don't
In
recognize. So
fact,
it's
let me give a small input on this. When Atal Bihari Vajpayee went there, and the China wanted Tibet to be included, he said no, Tar. He says only Tar he recognized as part of China, not Tibet.
absolutely. That's what, sir, I mentioned, sir. I mean, over a period of time, by practice, he has changed the opinion of the whole world. We are just, when we talk about Tibet, we are just talking about Tibet Autonomous Region. We have forgotten about balance of the Tibet, so that it existed and China has illegally annexed that area, or
Yes.
they have come into it. So firstly, in 2003, there was a possibility because China had actually gone ahead of us tremendously, and there was a possibility that we wanted some sort of thaw in relationship, but there is no written communication on this particular thing. If today we want to go back on one China policy, we say that we don't recognize because you've not reciprocated.
In fact, they also don't reciprocate, and they have been going back on all those issues, whether it is Chavalai's 1959 letter, which LAC, they had said they had gone back on that. In 1914, they had gone back on McMahon, which during
Correct.
Simla conference they had agreed to. So all those things, there's nothing cast in stone
Sir,
again.
in international relations, a lot of time you try a particular action thinking of a reciprocation. Now, I'm sure it was not one sided. There was something in return which was to come from China, which
Uh,
subsequently China refused to do it. It must be
since
a
we
part
are
of which I'm not aware. I mean, needs to be researched.
Since we are almost at the end of our discussion, last question I have, that give me 3 or 4 ideas that what do you think India needs to do to improve our capacity and capability to deal with the China's attempts to further do salami slicing and grab land in our of India.
So, first of all, our reaction capability has to be absolutely short. So, we have to, and for our reaction capability to be short, we have to have better ISPRs. We have no choice but to improve our intelligence gathering capabilities for surveillance, whether it is electronic surveillance, whether it is radio surveillance. Then we also have to make sure that we have enough alliances of intelligence sharing with all other neighboring countries. So Mongolia can give you very good information. Taiwan can give you fine. Taiwan we don't recognize officially, but it can give you information. Vietnam, and we are actually doing all this. If we are able to shorten our reaction time, I think more than half the battle is already won. And today, sir, it is more of a posturing. It is capability demonstration. A small little article that Chinese are carrying out exercise in freezing water in somewhere Taklamakan or somewhere in Xinjiang. We straight away say that okay, they have an intention of doing something in Pengong. Otherwise, why are they doing this maneuver in freezing cold water during winters? So it's all about posturing. So we have to do exercise. We have to think of ways and means to disturb the equilibrium that is there, at least in the mental equilibrium which the Chinese are thinking that they'll be able to do it. Then the Tibet cards. We have a tremendous amount of thing till such time we have Dalai Lama and the CTA here. Sir, believe you me, Chinese are paranoid of Tibetans. Anything which is related to Tibet, they are so very scared. This is yet another proof that the population there is not under their
Because
influence and
Tibet is
control.
meant for their survivability, important for their
Yes,
survivability
they
because of
have
the
no
water.
choice. They have no
There's no-
choice.
Thank you, Rakesh. It was a wonderful discussion. So, viewers, some of the very important issues which have come out by a very erudite presentation by Brigadier Rakesh Bhatia. One is that India needs to improve its infrastructure build-up, because then only response capability will improve. Second is India needs to invest hell of a lot in acquisition and responding on this intelligence. Third is we need to have more alliances, because if he wants to have a string of pearls around us, we have to have diamonds all around him. So Vietnam, Taiwan, Mongolia, Thailand, all these things can be part of it. In fact, Nepal has to be wooed, and good thing that Pushp Kumar Dahal, the Prime Minister, is coming for 4 days,
Correct.
and KP Sharma Oli, who is China centric,
Leaning towards, yeah.
Then we have to continue the psychological, this to disturb the Chinese mental equilibrium, because for the simple reason, because China understands only the language of power, and for that, playing Tibet card is very, very important. Thank you, and till we meet again with another episode of strategic dialogues, Strive dialogues. Jai Hind and a good night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.